be fine, right?
Okay, so I am here today with Brian Wang, and Brian is the futurist. Brian knows what's going to happen in the future. It's not a crystal ball, it's just odds taking. He only bets on the things that he's really sure of, and stuff like that. That's the way you do good futurism. Brian, you and I got talking the other day, and I said, I'm seeing what I'm seeing in my future vision here is a fork in the road.
Hmm.
And it turns out that Elon apparently had seen the fork in the road up in Pasadena, California, because there's a giant fork
Got
in
you.
the
Yeah.
road up there. And
Yeah.
apparently he liked that idea, or somebody did. And so now there's one down in Texas too, on the grounds of the Gigafactories. And there's a giant, I think, 30-foot fork.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular fork in the road that I'm talking about, though, is that right now, there's not, I think, even at Tesla headquarters, there is not 100% certainty that Robotaxi will ever roll out. It might be 99, it might be 98, but they're not yet driving a vehicle that they feel that they could absolutely put on the road tomorrow, I think.
Okay.
But that day is coming.
Right.
It might be in January, it might be in March. They will know about it 60 days before we know about it because they'll be driving it, the number 14, the version 14 or whatever,
Hmm.
before we even know that it's really out there.
Hmm.
But so there's going to come this day.
Hmm.
Now, the second part of my thesis here is that because they're not 100% sure, and because Elon is one of the most conservative guys when it comes to his money, or our money in this particular case, very conservative. He likes having that 33 bill sitting there in the bank, is that he has not started building factories like we thought he would. You and I both
Hmm.
thought he'd have a bunch of factories going by now in different countries, different kinds of factories, that he'd be expanding like crazy because why not?
Right.
So my second part of my thesis is once they know, they have clarity and they're absolutely certain that robotaxi is going to happen, that will be the fork in the road of starting to build factories.
Hmm.
Right now, they've already got it in their head. They've got the locations, they've got the what they think they want to do there. I mean, all this kind of stuff is probably already worked out in their head, but they don't want to bring down the
Commit.
hammer yet and,
Hmm.
and actually start it. And one of the reasons I think that they're doing that is because of what you and I have talked about many times before, and that is these are all money printing machines. These are
Right.
it's like the TAM on the semi truck, the TAM on the energy storage, the TAM on robots, the TAM
Hmm.
even on Cybertruck. I mean, cyber robotaxis.
Hmm.
These are immense, sometimes almost unlimited TAMs that can
Hmm.
be exploited. And that's why I think we've both been a little surprised that there hasn't been a bunch of new factories announced.
Hmm.
Okay, so does my analysis make sense to you? Does this concept make sense to you that they've been holding back, but that once Robotaxi happens, or they know it's going to happen, they can start to make announcements?
Um, I disagree with
Oh, okay.
some of what you're saying in
Oh
that,
no, not that.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So they're holding back, but not because they're not sure that they're going to do it. I think, especially Elon and I don't know, half of the team or whatever, at least, are saying, yeah, yeah, it's going to happen. Just like, on SpaceX, Gwynn and Elon totally think, oh yeah, we're going to Mars, we're going to do passenger travel, all that stuff, right? They're everyone's there thinking the same. It's going to happen, just a matter of when, right?
mhm.
Same thing here. Robotaxi, it's going to happen. In the book, the Isaacman Isaacson book biography, right? Elon back then was saying, so like what, a year and a half, 2 years ago, saying, okay, I should get rid of the steering wheel. He's already very certain then. The other people were thinking it's going to happen, but they were wanting to hedge, like you're saying, about that stuff. But at this point, with version 13 out,
Mhm.
I do not believe there is doubt in any one of the team. You see the text from Ashok, Ramaswamy. Everyone, Tesla AI, they're all totally on board. Yeah, we got this, and we're very time certain of Q2, Q3, it's next year
Right.
is, they if things would happen, it might not happen, but they would be shocked they
Right.
didn't happen,
Right.
right?
They'd be
So this,
shocked.
yeah, they'd be shocked that it didn't happen, right? So they're very, very certain it's going to happen. So then why no new factories,
Right.
right? Is because they do have capacity to add in perhaps double the number of cars that they could put in more lines. There's build out in Texas and in Berlin, even around Shanghai. They could add in more lines and factories and get things going bigger. Also because like they, squeeze things in by, adding in more gigapresses, save room inside, and then reorganize the factories inside to get more production out. So just with the existing lines getting to, I think you did the number three, go from 2 million to 3.5 million,
Right.
right? And then there's room for more lines in those places. And then they got the new factory in Nevada for the semi. So they
Right.
have some other factories coming in. And I think if they were to maximize those,
Mhm.
I think they could even do the 2 million Cybercab in 2026 off of existing footprint, right? So I think, and there's because they're able to put more in to what they already have,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Thus, they don't need to put in the capital for another building, another land, and that kind of thing. I think that by building in place, especially if the um, Cybercab um, unbox process,
Right.
right, which is Lego modules,
Right.
building in parallel, having a bunch of pieces around, which they said, order magnitude or a half an order of magnitude better. So like 3 to 5 times more production. Thus, they said instead of saying a Cybercab could make 500,000 cars, which is what their default statement of the uh, first order Giga Berlin, Giga Austin was, we'll start with 500,000 cars from
Right.
whatever, one, two lines, whatever it is, right? They said 2 million.
Mhm.
I think 2 million was not because they're saying they're going to build like 4 times as much, it's because they will build the same lines or whatever that would have made 500,000 cars, and they would go to 2 million
I
because
see.
they would have more capacity production. So that means if they end up converting each of the other ones, existing lines, they could pop in 8 million cars into the existing footprint,
I see.
right? Right. So, and it's also like when they commit to it, it is that they're constantly revising how the car production process is going to work. 2D, 3D, all this kind of stuff, right? In Battery Day, there was a discussion with Elon and Drew Baglino where they were talking about, if we, totally optimize the space and the volume within the factory, yeah, we can get an order of magnitude, 10x, but I think they may be talking about, getting, 10, 20 times as much production out of the location. So because if you go vertically into it, they could do that. So they were already thinking about, you know, the volume efficiency of the whole thing, right? So the unbox process
Right.
is only partway there. Because I think earlier statements talked about it's an alien dreadnought, the factory is an alien dreadnought
Right.
producing
Right.
um, things, right? Producing product.
Right.
And they talked about doubling every, production every couple of years, which they weren't able to achieve, right? But they never gave up that idea. They were
Mm.
still thinking, I'm going to double production every year off, or every 2 years, revamps and the factory, the product. And I get to, talk about getting to the third version of a product and then that's when it's really good, it's starting to mature. So they
Mm.
have not reached maturity on their factory processes. They had the first one, which kind of doesn't count. It was, like redoing Fremont,
Right.
which was the new meat factory. Then you have the new first new factory probably be like the Shanghai
Mhm.
factory,
Mhm.
and then Austin and Berlin are version 2s, 1.5s.
Mhm.
And then you'll have a version 3 factory, which is the unboxed factory. But I think there's another version after that, which would be even more
Mm.
productive,
Mm.
right? So the whole transformation of the factory is like those plants are constantly dynamic and in motion, constantly improving, so that when they can actually achieve it, it's like, okay, let's go with this version of the factory, and it's going to be 3 times better. I know we can make it 5 times better and maybe 10 times better. We're going to be more conservative and halfway step, get to a double, get to a quadruple kind of thing. So sorry to take that long time, but
No,
basically
no,
that
that's
is
okay. Yeah, that's okay. So, all right. So, and by the way, Brian White agrees with you. So we have both of you, the White and the Wong both agreeing.
yeah,
So,
the two
so,
Brian's. Yeah.
so when White and Wong both agree, then
Yeah.
that's pretty good. So you get the joke anyway. So all right. So, but would that preclude wanting to do another factory, say in Asia, in India? Would that preclude ever using the Mexico factory, or would you say that those two are just not as necessary immediately and might be looked at in another year or two?
I think, yeah, not as necessary immediately. Some factories would be needed because of the logistics of delivering things.
Mhm.
So if I'm serving the China market for megapacks,
Mhm.
right, then I need to have that localized, which they
Well,
do. If they,
let's talk about Megapack separately. Let's just for
okay,
now just on cars. Do you
sorry.
think we need in India, Indonesia, some kind of another factory in Southeast Asia or South Asia that would serve the Pacific region? In addition to Shanghai, do we need a Mexico factory to service South America, Central America, Mexico, and maybe some of the other, places that are trading partners with Mexico? Do we need those two factories, or are we past that?
We do need them for new semi factories
Oh, okay.
because in order to make 2 million semi trucks a year, though there are 50,000 production, initial
I'm
capacity.
gonna stop you again. Semi is a separate issue for me.
Every separate issue. Okay,
Just
so
for
for
cars.
cars,
Just for
okay,
cars.
so cars, I think they can get up to like 6 million with just building more
Existing.
lines,
Okay.
extending out Austin, Berlin, maybe even 8 million, 10 million. So they don't need to get to new factories. Um, but if things are hockey sticking on demand, right? And they can see it and they know, okay, it's definitely going to happen, right? Then on the car side, if they know, okay, we're going to 20 million units, or we license and the other guys are all going to have us make the skateboard,
Right.
then I'm going to need to make 50 million, 100 million vehicles per year, right? At least the skateboard
Right.
part, something like
Right.
that.
Right.
So then that's needed. So basically, if as we shoot over 8 million, 10 million vehicle demand, then they would definitely need to expand. Location logistics could require something. Um, Geopolitical, I guess. But if you've already got a factory in China, you already got one in Europe, you got one in North America, you got several in North America, then there, I don't see the huge because the other market's not that big. If you add up, Japan, India, 4 million, something like that,
And
you could
then,
service that out of,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, and then it occurs to me as you're talking that if these are mostly going to be cyber cabs,
yeah,
and all of them, almost all of them are going to be for robotaxi use,
right.
that it's not going to make a big difference if they're saving $1,000 or $2,000 a car by making it in Mexico versus making it in the United States. It's just not going to matter.
Right, right. And the biggest market, 25 million cars per year, is China.
Right.
So right now you're at a million cars. So you need to get to if you get a really cheap car, 25K, 20K car version, something like that, a
Right.
robotaxi thing, then that could demand another China factory. Um, but if you were to right now they got it so that they could make 1.4 million, but they're making like 800,000. So you can kind of like get one full line dedicated to upgrade improvement.
Mhm.
So are they already doing that? Have they already upgraded that line to make it unboxed process or half unboxed process?
Half a bucks.
Um, so they've had time to do that.
Right.
So did they do that? Like, am I overestimating what they can do by taking the second line? Because they unboxed that next line, half unboxed it. Maybe you can make 2 million cars out of
Right.
there. Like, so you have your 800,000 in the one, and then this other building can go to the 2 million, so they can get to close to 3 million. And, you're surfing a large market. If you know that if they get full market share in China with Robotaxi,
Mhm, mhm.
25K, 20K car, max volume, and China goes 100% EV and AV, automated vehicles,
Mhm.
in 2, 3 years, then they may need to get 8 million, 10 million vehicles in China.
Yeah,
So that would demand another factory, right?
got
But do they, how much do they need to go up and say, okay, I'm delivering 3 million vehicles in China now with one line, and then I take the second one down and upgrade that. If I can do that relatively seamlessly, I could get to 4 million kind of in place, right? Being hyper efficient with my cash, right?
right.
And then now make a second factory to make another 4 million, they get to 8 million, right? So, um, does Elon want to see that demand there and to get through? Okay, I get to 2 million. Okay, now I pop into the line and get to 4 million. I can also do, they have other land there. Like they got the land for the Megapack factory and stuff like that. So they can, and they can do it in a year. So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they can build it fast. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. All right. So that's cars. We'll go
yeah.
to the maybe an easier subject then. Maybe not. Maybe you'll
Mhm.
have the answer differently than I do, tier two. So we got Megapack, unlimited
Yeah.
demand, apparently unlimited batteries available.
All right.
But they haven't built the third factory. I mean, I haven't announced a
And
factory yet. Now, you and I both know, or we think we know, that the factory in Shanghai is bigger than we thought, and that maybe it's going to be 20 gigabytes, 20
gigawatt hours
watt
for
hours
one line in
for
one
one line.
first quarter,
Right,
80 gigawatt hours fully ramped.
right. So that's what we're hoping for. That would be great, but the reality is the worldwide demand is massively bigger than that.
Mhm.
And there could be a couple of reasons. I mean, maybe there's not enough orders. I mean, because we've talked about the problem of designing a solar field or designing a wind field or having some kind of utility that needs it, and yet even though they know they need it and they want it, they didn't think they could get it. And then when they find out they can get it, now they have to plan and it's still 2 years off. I mean, there's a chicken and egg problem. And so maybe that's why they're going slow. I don't know. But if they thought they had the orders, if they thought they could get the orders, it would seem to me, I've always believed they'd be popping these babies up all over the place. So
Right.
I would say that if they thought they had no longer had a capital problem in terms of future factories, they would want to get a couple, three, four announced and just start building these things.
Right. So each one of the factories costs about $1 billion to make
Okay.
at the larger size, not
Mhm.
the smaller size.
Okay.
Um, again, third version, we're doing the second version now. I'm expecting a third version again of the factory, which could be even bigger. Like they could choose to make a $2 billion factory that can pump out, 4 times as much,
Right.
right? So I expect the factory processes again not to stay static. I expect the product to not stay static because it's batteries and there's also some software and stuff to control the delivery of power, switching, millisecond and second in order to do this trading and to do grid balancing things where
Right.
they have to dynamically control it. So there is not just a simple batteries in a box thing. And one of the problems is that when you install these things, there's a bunch of hookups that have to occur to the grid and then, transformer and this or that. They have all this technology capability. They could add transformer capability into the box.
Right. I think they're doing a little of that, aren't they already?
Right, right. But
Yes.
they can get even more so that I can just toss it on, connect the wire, the big cables in there, and then the setup could be a lot faster. I'm anticipating that they're figuring all that out. And also they're looking at what is the power conditioning that I need for my AI data centers,
Mm.
right? So XAI in Tennessee has 100,000 GPUs going to 200,000 GPUs, going to go to a million GPUs, maybe even by the end of next year, right? So that million GPUs, that needs like 4 gigawatt hours of power, right? So that by itself needs tens of thousands of megapacks with a bunch of solar, right? And the problem everyone else has, the world has, for these massive AI data centers is that um, we don't have that much. extra capacity lying around in any one location. That
Hmm.
when I try and go to like 100, a few hundred megawatts, even though there's a nuclear power plant that can generate gigawatt, everyone else is using that power. You know,
Sure.
factories, houses, all using that power. So there's not much extra, right? And even if there was, some hydroelectric dam, some wind place, whatever, it's difficult to pop in all this extra power. And so that's a problem. And there's clearly technological solutions around power switching to other stuff in order to provide the power in the right way,
Mhm.
where the grid doesn't fail. To be able to just build 10 gigawatts of power sitting there with, a million megapacks, you know, 10 gigawatts of solar sitting there, right? Because I can build the solar, but it's just like I don't need it. So if the megapacks can do more than just hold the power,
Right.
but do the switching, the transforming, and then deliver it to the AI data center, right? That particular problem, they need technology in the boxes so I can just add them in. So the installation is like Legos. I'm building more power like Legos,
Right.
just pumping it out. So there's technological problems that they need to solve on that are, power switching, they're complicated. And they're going to do that for themselves in Tennessee, I believe,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? So I'm waiting for them to solve these things and say, yeah, just like for, Starlink being the biggest customer for
Sure, sure,
SpaceX
sure,
launches,
sure.
that they become the biggest customer for their own megapacks,
Right.
right? So that's something I'm expecting to happen, and being able to like there's all this delays around, oh, it takes you a year to install the Megapack and do this and that. If that thing had the technology and the software to do it, it should be flip of a switch. Why should it be all this other crap going
Right.
on?
And that would be,
So
yeah, and that would make huge sense for the what do you call it? Mega chargers, the power chargers.
mega charges too, yes.
Yeah. So all the chargers, because we got to put them in eventually for the regular superchargers. So putting
Right.
them in for superchargers and mega chargers, if they are ready to go, if they
Right.
are just plug and play,
Plug and
uh,
play.
yeah, it'd be a lot easier to get the utilities to have it all worked out and only
And,
take weeks instead of years.
right. And for their divisions where like they need to, in order for us we make 50,000 big trucks. I know you want but big trucks later.
We'll get there. We'll get there in a
That
minute.
yeah, then I need to have 50,000 mega chargers, something like
Yes.
that. Yeah, I need to have all these mega chargers. Right now they're making like, 6,000, 10,000 a year.
Uh-huh.
80% of what the US is doing, a large fraction of the world. Then why why can't I make them as fast as I'm making megapacks? If I want to pop up the factory, they need to like spew them out and then start connecting up all this massive power demand because we need to double global power for
Right.
AI
Yes.
by 2040, right? So that means 18,000 terawatts of power. There, we're only adding like I don't know, like 100 like I think 50 gigawatts, 40 gigawatts of like coal and nuclear and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then that is like five times as much
Yeah.
because of the utilization rate versus solar. So that nameplate power, in terms of gigawatt hours, and like
Mhm,
how
mhm.
many hours I can use it
Right.
is different. But then the solar and the wind is up at about, we're adding like 500 gigawatts or a terawatt per year, right?
Okay.
And that could go to 10 terawatts.
Mhm.
Um, so, and that would be like, 10 million megapacks or something in order to do all that solar. So in
So
order to
what
build, yeah,
so come back to home base then. Are we
yeah,
going to start building some more facilities? It's some more productive
yes,
capacity.
yes, they need to start building facilities. Yes, they will. I will definitely there'll be announcements next year. But then in terms of like going crazy, where they're like adding 10 or 100 factories a year, they need to solve this other stuff so I can just pop them out, install, and just go crazy. And then if I'm building massive data centers, blah blah blah, then that and the charger demand, they have to solve it so it's just like boom 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 go 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 because I can get them out and they have to install instantly. So they have to solve that problem before they can ramp. And they can't build the factories to know until they know how to build it.
Right. Right. Exactly. Okay. So maybe my number of 3 to 5 wouldn't be crazy for next year to
Right.
announce
It's
three
not
to five. Yeah.
right. Now here's five.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll come to your favorite subject, large trucks.
Yes.
I'm using the word large trucks because in China there are large trucks
Yeah.
In India, they're large trucks. In Europe, are they large trucks or are they semis?
I think they're semis, but they're different semis because they're
Yes.
over cab because they have to be, it'll turn smaller places, stuff like
All
that.
right. So do we hear about any large truck factories or semi truck factories being set up in China, India, Europe next year?
Yes, I think they need to at least announce it so they build it the year after.
Okay.
They need to announce it, and they need to be on each continent. Europe one, China one. I think Asia has 70-80% of the trucks.
Right.
So, and 50% are in China. So if I make if I was to make 10 factories, it would make sense to have four in China, at least the
Hmm.
capacity of four in China, one in India, one in Korea, one in Japan,
Hmm.
Europe, one or two, and US one. Yeah. So, or, so
Something.
that's something like that, something like that. But the announcements could be over 2, 3 years. Right.
All right. Then the next one would be this is going to be kind of nobody's thinking about this one. Actually, no, yeah. So I think they should build their own solar panel factory.
Yes.
I think it was you that's been talking about if Optimus could install them, then it would be a no-brainer. We could have solar all over the country in no time. But what
Right.
about the factory itself, building solar panels in the United States, for the United States, as we need this big ramp up? Should Tesla announce a solar panel factory next year?
Um, the President Trump needs to give the regulations where that makes economic sense.
Okay.
Because right now, China has subsidized and has built such a glut of factories where they make 70, 80% of the
Yes.
solar
Yes.
that they've made these gigafactories for solar over there.
Mhm.
And basically they create a glut, they lose money and they subsidize themselves through that. So normal economic competition, no
Mhm.
matter how efficient you were, you would not make your margin doing that. It's better to
Right.
just buy those
Right.
solar. So if Trump was to put a tariff upon that to have it make sense to do it here,
Mhm.
or to subsidize or do something to make it make sense until the economic conditions are such that it makes sense to do it here. It does not make sense in most cases to do it here. So yeah, so there's some geopolitical stuff that has to change, yeah, regulation things that have to change, which um,
Could happen
you
very
know,
easily.
could
Yes.
happen very easily. Yeah.
Okay, power walls. This is one that's always been a little confusing to me. So we know they're selling a lot of power walls now, but
Mm,
I've really never done any deep study on what the demand might be if the price started coming down a bit, and or what the
mm,
demand is in China, in Japan, in Taiwan, in South Korea, in Europe. So
mm.
is there enough demand to start in around the world at these prices, or if the prices came down a little bit? To start building out some Powerwall factories around the world.
So in terms of the cost, I think that we can get to half to one third the cost down from like, $10,000 for 10 kilowatt hours, down to, 3,000, $2,000. You'd have to go with, LFP or then maybe switch over to sulfur, uh, sulfur batteries. Because sulfur batteries, they'd be heavier, but they could be like 10 times cheaper than the lithium
Okay.
batteries. So you make it super duper cheap. In terms of demand,
Mhm.
the unlimited demand is again for AI.
Mm.
So I need to have all this solar power on my roof,
Mhm.
power walls on my home
Right.
to power my AI. So
I
what's my
see.
AI? It could be a Tesla bot, or it's a power wall with a server box that is having an AI5 or AI6 chip in it.
Mm.
So the AI5, AI6 chip will draw, like right now it's drawing less power, it's drawing like in the car like 100 watts or something like that, right?
Right. Right.
And so it's more efficient than the NVIDIA chips, right?
Right. Right.
But you want to have petaflops 100 times or more the power than my laptop. My laptop has a 100 watt hour battery,
Mhm.
It runs for 20 hours. So I can draw like 5, 10 watts to run this laptop and have it change for, 20 years, right? But I want to get 100 times the compute, 1,000 times the compute in our homes for
Wow.
AI because the training is reaching some limits, right?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
I have massive data center, a million chips, it does stuff, it gets to a certain level, but then the inference or the giving me the answer part needs more power and compute and intelligence, right? So if I have 100 times more compute, it'd be like I have, instead of using GPT-3, I'd be using GPT-5, right?
Right.
It would be, way, way, way better, smarter, right?
Wow.
And if intelligence has value, I need to do that. So Tesla will have 3 ways to give you that. They'll have the chip in the car, it's in your garage,
Right.
giving you compute and also answering questions from other people when you're not having questions to answer.
Right.
Your Tesla bot will be able to come in and have answers. We have the compute in it. Or your Powerwall will power a little server that will have the cooling and stuff like that, that will have this super chip in it. So
Mm.
3 different ways to give you your chip that everyone will need to have.
Hmm.
So what's the demand? Everyone in the world will need uh, this AI chip power. And why will it have to be everywhere? It's because the whole grid problem of I can't have 1,000 nuclear power plants sit in one spot running something for
Right.
my little cloud computing thing. Your answers are over there in your home that you want, and I
Yes.
can send out the questions to you. So it's better to have everyone having power and
Mm.
everyone having chips and stuff. And because you're a homeowner, you will want to have this thing because even if you have no questions for AI, you can take in the questions and make money.
Right.
And Tesla will take in questions and make money. So distributed AI will be the driver for Powerwall, just like Megapack will be driven by AI data centers, right?
Okay. All right. So if I back up for a second, though, and
Mhm.
I say that that might be 5 years from now or something, or 4 years or whatever, I'm guessing that's going to be something like that. Is there demand now for the functionality that it has today to where it
Mhm.
would justify building a lot more power walls than they are?
Um, yes, yes, there is still demand today. There is a shortage of people who need power. The fact that the grid, in the United States just sucks,
Yeah.
and the power costs are going up like that, it makes sense for that to shift over to solar on roofs and
Right.
power walls.
Okay. With yeah, okay. All right. So the combination is what we're really looking at.
Right.
Okay. All right. So my last one, you and I have already talked about this a little bit, but I had to do it again. Will Tesla announce their first drone gigafactory next year?
Um,
Or at least a pilot line, so to speak.
mhm. Yeah. Um, I would like to punt on that question, but
Okay.
I would say if I was if you hold the gun to my head and whatever that,
Right.
I say no. I think it'd be 2026, 2027. They have a lot on their plate and they uh, don't need that extra distraction.
I see.
So yeah, so I would think that just because of whole, too much stuff going on, they don't need to
All
do
right.
that.
So, but you're at least partially in my camp thinking that if it's not 2025, it would be 2026.
Right, right. That
That Elon
flying
getting
car,
Elon getting into the drone business just makes too much sense.
flying cars and drones is something that and other vehicles and stuff like that is something that will have utility, military, commercial, all that kind of stuff. Elon has ideas for how to make that way better. He wants to do it, but same thing for the HVAC for the home. It's it's down on the list. It's transformative, $100 billion business for someone, but he's making tens of trillions. It's you know
Right. Yeah, I was thinking again, I try to think in terms of Elon being the entrepreneur, and the HVAC would be a great example, but the drone thing is like could be the bright shiny objects that's too hard to ignore.
Hmm.
Been able to
Yeah.
ignore HVAC. I've been in that same position. You've probably been in the position, where you
Yeah.
have so many ideas and you've just got to jettison this one for a while. You just can't even think
Yeah.
about it anymore. But
Right.
on the drone one, I just have this idea that he talks about it so often that it's like
Yeah.
it's bother him to the point where he needs to do it.
There's a thing for the autonomous things where a drone fully autonomous
Mhm.
would be part of a more efficient supply chain,
Mhm.
right? So, it's like making a flying Tesla bot,
Right.
right? That, it needs to do stuff. It needs to, do that 3D volume within the factory and that kind of thing. There's something at some point where it will be needed for the ultimate efficiency of the supply chain in the factory, right?
Hmm.
Not so much for the old uses of like, blowing someone up, right?
Yeah,
Whatever. Don't but it's like it's more for within a factory. It will need to have that. Are there other ways to deal with it? And also the supply chain thing of
Mhm.
like delivering stuff where it's like, okay, I
Right.
have the bot, they're going in cars, they're doing
Right.
stuff, but there could be even more efficiency if I had this a flying drone with arms to do stuff, right?
Right. Right.
So having that additional capability, going fully 3D
Mhm.
within the factory and the warehouse and everything, right? That becomes a necessary thing at some point, right? So within 3 years, 4 years max,
Mhm.
right? The whole thing, like we talked about earlier, about him and Drew Baglino talking about, well, if we use the entire volume of the factory, we can get, this 10x efficiency, right? Well, entire volume
Right.
means I have things flying around, right? Up top, right? Delivering things, dropping stuff in, and then supply chain stuff coming out of the warehouse and doing stuff like that. So that is what I see as the use case of doubling and tripling the productivity of the factory and the warehouse and all that kind of stuff, right? So getting that extra efficiency, I think, and not just for drones flying around, but drones with hands,
Sure.
it's like science fiction things where it's like
Right.
this flying drone with hands comes up and fixes something. That's what I see as being a
I see.
needed thing,
Okay.
right?
All right. All right. All right. Did I miss anything? Is there a factory that I didn't mention that they should build, that they should announce next year?
Dojo factories, Dojo 2, Dojo 3,
Okay.
the data centers that they're going to, make, million um, GPUs for
Remember,
Tennessee for XAI, and then there'll be some large thing for Tesla AI, and Dojo 2 is supposed to be B200 equivalent, so they're getting production. The chips are being made by TSMC, but then the servers, are being installed made by other people. There may be some production there. The AI5, AI6 chips. So all the AI hardware need that, but the actual fabrication of those chips is by TSMC, but the units themselves, the tiles that go for the dojos, they're making those themselves, right? So there's production happening there. Um, I think they may get more into electronics and electronic components,
hmm,
where because that's something that they're doing for Starlink, for SpaceX, where they're going to be the largest manufacturer of electronics from their Texas factory. So Tesla, I think, has more need for other electronic products that will go into the car, go into the bots, go into the Powerwalls. I think that they will be making more entirely new products coming. Um, so like a Cambrian explosion of
right.
of
Right.
new products coming into the home and
Hmm,
into the factory and stuff like that. I
hmm.
see that kind of happening. Timing, I don't know, but it also becomes like a needed thing for if it comes down to the needed thing for a critical path within what they're doing with
Anyway.
yeah, some of the other stuff. That would be, but since I don't know the overall plan, I can't back into what that would be.
Yeah, and I didn't mention Optimus only because it only takes a 300, according to me, I've done the layout. It only takes a 300,000 square foot building to build a million Optimi.
Right.
So it's something you could just buy, existing tilt-ups that are
Hmm.
out there from 300,000 to a million square feet. And I don't see it it doesn't require like stamping presses and the kinds of things that you require for automobiles. So I'm thinking maybe it will just be in existing facilities.
right. But that will exponential beyond a million towards hundreds of millions and a billion at some point, I think before 2030. And so that means once they get it figured out, again, third version, fourth
Right.
version of Tesla bot, and then they'll have the manufacturing sorted out and they will make a lot of them. And there's also not just the bot themselves, the actuators,
All the extra.
they're doing the whole
Right.
vertical supply chain on their stuff and the hands and those kind of things. So um it's just like when they go wide. So we're getting to the point where we're getting, you know, robotaxis at some smaller scale, but they
Mhm.
want to flip the switch and go to 10 million or something, or go to 100 million. So same thing for Tesla bot. So we're in the phase of like learning, figuring it out, and then it matures, and then go to volume.
I got you.
And how fast does that happen if Robotaxi gets to 10x, 20, 100x human? How good does that make the Tesla bot
Optimus. That's right.
Optimus stuff, right? And how fast does that happen? I think it could be shockingly fast. It's kind of like a relay race of like,
Mhm.
okay, here's my Robotaxi, and I'm grabbing the baton, and now I get Tesla bot. So I'm already at speed, and so then that transformation could, like they already have the thing where it's catching the balls and stuff like that. So the transformation on that software AI side
Right.
um, could be shockingly fast.
Shockingly. Yes. I expect it to be shockingly fast.
Yeah. And if it goes shockingly fast and they get to the point where, okay, this is that useful thing, I
Yeah.
need to make a billion of them. I need a billion in a hurry,
Yeah.
right? So,
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, that's my list and your list. And thank you,
yeah.
Brian, for all of that. Listen, you folks out there, you need to follow Brian. If you're not watching his channel, if you're not going over to nextbigfuture.com, the largest, the most visited science blog in the entire universe.
I just want to state specifically, people who watched our videos, you remember mine, we both published our videos on that, where I said 450 by like, for Tesla stock price by, first
Yes.
week of February. And we're
Yeah.
almost there.
Almost there.
Today we're at 372, breaking out, going to the all-time highs. If you had heard our channel and like got into it,
That's right.
just
That's right.
after the earnings call, right? Then even before the election, right?
Yeah.
Then here you got getting close to a double, right?
Yeah.
We're like, so it's like a lot of money that you would have, again, not financial advice, but
Yes.
if
Yeah,
yeah,
and by the way, if you want to hear more about what Brian thinks about where the stock price is going, you want to look at the Thursday night show because this show will be on, I think, Friday night. I think you're watching it right now on Friday night. So if you didn't watch Thursday night, go ahead and go back and watch the Thursday night show because that's what Brian and I are going to talk about. We're going to talk about, okay, what's really going to happen with regard to the Tesla share price now that we're at 370. Who knew? Brian knew. Okay.
yeah.
All right, Brian, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank
And
you.
all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.